Time to ink. And typing in the meantime, and normally there was supposed to be music now, but the computer is kind of being a complete asshat. Come on, I said I want this. Play this. Yes, yeah. I just like wobble on the camera. I'm sorry about that. It's easier for people who stream from their computers, I reckon. I have to see with the camera stand and all. Chris holds back. Chris Hosberg's awesome. Action! Adventure! A cup of tea! This is what people come to see. The cup of tea of adventure. I have to make a little tea break afterwards. So right now I'm filming everything here. I think it's high time that I put some new content on my YouTube, and mostly I think I have an improved quality now with improved visual quality. So I think now it's getting more interesting to film these things that I do on account of them not looking like poop. It looked alright back then on the camera, the big one, but the problem with the big camera is that it's extremely in the way. Huh. Doesn't look too right. Why did I take these cups? Like the fancy Villeroy and Bourg cups with a stupid shape. Yeah, I'm using the cutlery and stuff to characterize the characters too. Top tip. I have the question in the stream. What do I do with all the originals that I ink? I save them in folders using, how is it called again? Like the plastic things you put paper in to put in folders. I'm of course not using just any one, I'm using the ones that are document proof, so that the documents will still look good in 20 years or so, or 10 or 100 or whatever. It's good paper that I'm using here, and it's also very good ink. So unless there is huge water damage or fire or so, should last a long time. And so I keep pretty much all the originals. They are kept safe in document proof, either folders or how's it called again? There's a special kind of cardboard for that. It's called super special cardboard. That is the name I shall go with. But it's not that name. It is archive. Yes, archive paper. I must admit that I'm one of the guys who are very obsessed with keeping all the originals. So the good news is that while I'm working on paper is not very thick. So it's not really a huge issue with space or so. Although if I was to move out, which I do not plan, by the way, because this is the old family house and it's big, it's nice, and we have all the room here we need. Especially me, because I need a lot of room for the archives and all, and materials. But yeah, normally it shouldn't become an issue with keeping all the originals, because they don't take that much space, and now with over 10 years of pretty obsessive art creation, still a lot of room to use. I know some who don't care about the originals, I'm a bit obsessed with these. I want to keep them clean and all in good shape. Maybe it's also because I study history. Well, I studied this history. Future historians will find it very interesting. By which I mean they will go like, what the heck? Or maybe they will go, oh, finally, the originals of the great artist who has inspired us all, and I don't really think that this is what they will say. A bit of background, stood ST. Maybe it would have been more interesting to film this, but I am a stupid man, so I did not film this. So let's have some foxes with fun expressions instead. But yeah, I tend to not just gift my originals away. Very few that I've offered away. It's really something very, very, very special. Or it's something that I deem pretty worthless. In these cases, yeah. I mean, sometimes you just do little sketches and they are not really interesting. You just see them as to learn how to draw something, and they don't own an intrinsic artistic quality to you or so. Yeah, in a million of years they will see my artwork in the museum. No, I don't think so. Just typing. My skin is a bit spotty, sorry about that. I'm not presenting the best of pictures here. Never had a very good skin. And my friend is kind of crazy because he's working in a again in a hardware store, and he's always one of the people who, well, gets all the stuff from one place to another, and it's not really the lightest work in the world. He has such amazingly smooth skin. His hands, man, how does he do? Genuinely kind of impressed. Anyway, drawing is nice. So just to repeat, what you're hearing in the background is Chris Hülsbeck, which is a German composer who became really famous for his video game stuff. And this is an old soundtrack he did on the Amiga. It is Turrican 2, Electric Boogaloo. No, this is not the title. This is me making fun of people who are very talented and that I should not make fun of. Okay, just kidding. I'm not really making fun of Chris Hülsbeck here. Just making fun of the... it's not the best title in the world, it kind of is. It's both the best and the most boring. It's part 2, so you just call it part 2. It is a very pragmatic name. I think it's better than a bad pun. But yeah, this soundtrack is generally considered to be his magnum opus. And I would tend to agree, because it's pretty damn great. It has this quality of Amiga samples. You can tell it's not the real instrument or so. But the synthetic nature kind of gives it another quality. It's a bit like when you have pixel art. The pixels themselves present another quality to the art. Oh, I checked, the Amiga could actually do wave tables, a bit like the Commodore 64 or the Nintendo Entertainment System. So it was not as good as the C64 at this, but it could do it. It was never used though, because they wanted it to sound like the future. They used samples. Doom 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 doom. Doom 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 doom. Do 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 do. I'm still a little bit trying around with the streams. But then again, you know, this is just life. You're constantly trying to improve a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. And in the end, you will hopefully have something decent to show for your effort. Or you will have something to show for your efforts. It depends how misguided your efforts are. I try to not misguide them because I'm lazy. And misguiding efforts take so much effort. Dum 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 dum. This is a good soundtrack. I'm not sure it would sound as good if it was using real instruments, because it was composed with the Amiga sound in mind. I've noticed it with some Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1 games too. The ones that were composed with soundtrack in mind, were using real instruments. They don't sound as punchy or so. Like they kind of lose a lot of what makes them fun. Thinking of examples, well, you have the Mario 64 soundtrack. That ending music. But then the imperfections of the sample technology used kind of give it some more meat. I've had the question if I have a favorite soundtrack from a game. It depends what time of day you ask me. One of my favorite soundtracks of all time is probably Final Fantasy IX. And then the funny cases where I don't really want to, don't really like the game or so, but the soundtrack is amazing. It's a specialty of the team Fallen Brothers. If you want a kick-ass soundtrack and chiptunes, I will put links in the description below on this, I think. I'll put one for Turrican, that's sure. Yeah, when I upload the video, you will get nicely links below to listen to stuff that is more interesting than me talking. Like people being talented. Have to check that soundtrack too. Down. I'm drawing. The Adventures of Mary and Ender. Well, for people who do not read my comic, the two Fox characters are called Mary and Endora. They're mad scientists and they're and currently they somehow managed to be accidentally taken in the Men in Black Special Force. And the Super Mario Bros. 2 soundtrack. So nice and jazzy and upbeat. Bravely Default has a pretty amazing soundtrack. I mean, of recent gaming, I think it has some of the best soundtrack. There is this Mario game. It was really not the best Mario game. The Mario 3D World on Wii U really wasn't the best Mario game. It was still a good game. I mean, it's Mario. They usually try to make good games. But yeah, right now you have Mario Odyssey. So in comparison, yeah, it feels primitive. Mario Odyssey is just pure, unadulterated fun and all. But the soundtrack of the game is amazing. So many tracks are just incredibly fun and upbeat, and I like it very much. I know one track that I can't listen to anymore, which is the one Winged Angel. The one Winged Angel. It has one winch that goes. Well, it makes sense since it has only one wing, and the wing has one winch, and it goes. I'm a sound designer. But yeah, the problem with the track is that it has been done to death. Every time they make a concert or something with Final Fantasy music, it has to be there, and can't listen to it anymore. I grew tired of it. It's not that I don't even think it's the best Final Fantasy track, Final Fantasy VII, and with that I will probably get killed by all the Final Fantasy VII fan people. These are fanboys, but they're also always fangirls, you know. And they will also kill you if you say something bad about Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I might as well just continue digging my grave. Final Fantasy VII has aged very poorly in the graphics department. The soundtrack isn't the best on the PlayStation, even on the PlayStation 1. It's not the best Final Fantasy soundtrack. I think this honor goes to Final Fantasy IX. To me, it's the best Final Fantasy on the PlayStation 1. And one of the best Final Fantasy games, periods. Is it the best? I don't know. If I say it's the best, I get killed by the people who like Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VI the most. Not Final Fantasy III. You silly little Americans. You. We called it that game that only came out in Japan and America and we didn't have. So yeah, I think Final Fantasy IX has a really great soundtrack, and it is one of my favorite soundtracks of all times. There is a sort of melancholy to it, though, that is, well, it's kind of what they were going for. It just means that I can't listen to it in any mood, and I love this soundtrack. And Monkey Island 3 is one of the best soundtracks that I know of. Nothing to do with Final Fantasy now, but I admire with the soundtrack of Final Fantasy of Monkey Island. Sorry, the soundtrack is way better than necessary. Like, it didn't need to be as good as it was. But it was, and that is what makes it artistic. Maybe this would be the good distinction. A soundtrack is much better than what was needed. It is automatically artistic. And when you go the extra mile. Like this part, right now, in that soundtrack that I'm listening to right now. This is awesome. Wait for it. It does sound a little bit like farts. The bass. See, this is exactly what I meant. If the soundtrack was made using real instruments, it just wouldn't sound the same. Do do di do be ba doom. Do do. Just correcting here a little bit. The expression didn't. This is better. Didn't convey exactly what I wanted it to convey. What did I want it to convey? I don't know. Words are pretty bad at describing emotions, I believe. Ba, ba. So something I'm pretty happy with here is that I drew him a Bauhaus house. And what I didn't realize is how freaking easy they are to draw. So top tip, if you have a rich person and you need to draw them a fancy house, draw them a Bauhaus house. You've heard it here first. They're pretty bold in their architecture, but they still had the... Well, they were still trying to make something that looked actually good and not just... Yeah, look, it's square and modern, and we made it out of raw concrete, so you know it's artistic. I think the Bauhaus had some really nifty designs going on. And if it's too mainstream for you, you can just Google the Stil, which was what came before, really. Do. Oh ho ho. Doodle-doodle-doo. Ow. Yep. Taking some ink. Just quick answer. Okay, checking. This is looking okay. Noticed some very small patches here where the black is missing. There's one thing where I must say, yeah, it takes a little bit longer. It's with when the foxes are around. You always have the black hair and all. And after that you have to draw the shades. Okay, this is the kick-ass one. Ta-da! Ta-da-da. Not the most talkative today, I must say. I just realized something. If I put this in YouTube and someone doubles the sound of the video to see how I draw, but quicker, it's going to be hilarious with the music and the squeaky voice. This was a very important message. Thanks for listening. I'm not pretty happy with this tree. There's a little bit more work. Work. It's Sunday. I don't know, I'm choosing my lazy days a bit differently. It arrives that I have days where I have just, creativity is low, I don't really feel like doing anything. And so I will do much less and spend hours playing Zelda or whatever. But then I will have days where I'm just on a run and will draw and do stuff without end. So I have to be a little bit flexible on my schedule. Not too flexible either. If I have work that I have to do, that I absolutely must do, I will somehow manage to force myself to do it. I think the difference between someone who's a little bit more professional, or at least further in their career, and someone who's just doing it for fun is that even if you're forcing yourself to do the work, that it will still be good. The result, at least. I originally planned to show them in their entirety, but cutting corners. No, okay, I'm kidding. I thought it would look funnier this way. Oh yeah. I drew most of the page. Might as well finish it, I guess. I don't know. You don't know yet. No, I don't know yet. Da da. Don't drink tea this way, by the way. This is considered rude in many a culture. I'm actually using one of the very first comic characters I designed here. But this is, well, he had been redesigned several times over the years. So it's not like the design was always like this. Because every teenager has an edgy phase. I think we can all be very happy if all the people here who didn't grow up with internet very early on can be very happy to not have shared their edgy teenager things online, I think. because I'm sure glad about many pics that I didn't share online, and I don't know in as much they would have positively influenced my career if I had gotten positive comments on it by other edgy teenagers. Which is something you have to remember when you're drawing stuff and sharing it online. It's entirely possible that you're having just a community of people who like you and what you do and do not really criticize you. And you don't really progress because of that, so yeah, you have to try to progress. And for that, critique is always okay, actually it's not always useful. There are some critiques that were not that useful for me, but generally read all the critiques. They tend to be very useful, and even the ones that you don't really feel like being having critiques that do not really make sense are useful, because they do show always one part of the readership. Maybe it's only one person though. I do like to troll sometimes with the readers too. Oh. Apparently I disconnected from the... Okay. Just let me check something. Yeah, apparently I got disconnected from the chat. It's Picarto. So, yeah, I'm chatting on Picarto. Well, I'm having the chat open on Picarto. Yeah, if people here want to follow me, just do it on Picarto. Okay. It's looking cool though. Black suits are very cool. I have a suit too. It's black. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I'm kind of listening to free onto the music now. This is what happens when you consider how your music instrument sounds, which in this case is the Amiga, and you do something that is tailored to sound good on this one specific instrument. It tends to sound pretty good. As far as I can tell, I am not a musician, and what I'm saying here is really just based on the experiences that I've had listening. and overthinking everything. Do not consider my words to be the ultimative truth, because there is no ultimative truth. Except that Addictive Science is great and you should go read it. Support me on Patreon. Please comment and subscribe. Yes, this is the ultimative truth. Or not. If we don't know what the truth is. Do. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was an architect that was hugely popular in France called the Corbusier, and essentially he made Bauhaus, but he took Bauhaus and made it really fucking ugly. He had, he stole all of his ideas from the Steel, Bauhaus, and Frank Lloyd, right? So, but he's the one that got popular, and I don't really see why, because his houses were bloody awful. Well, I mean, the design was bloody awful, but actually, I've heard it's not just the designs, the houses themselves were pretty terrible in terms of, well, badly insulated, heat comfort was just meh. Lighting is all over the place, with some rooms that have too much and some not enough lights, and so on and so forth. And yeah, not really good at not getting wet in the rain and stuff like that. So houses that were not very good at being houses. And this is something where the Bauhaus was a bit better, but I think that, yeah. But yeah, the other awesome thing to add to Bauhaus is the houses were pretty easy to draw, as I've learned today. And this makes them awesome and my friends. Just kidding. There's another reason I chose this house. I chose this house because I needed something very upper class, and that is a kind of showing the character of the person. Okay, I will stop recording. I mean, we drew quite a bit today, and I will go over to normal streaming. I will put this online, and yeah. See you for the next video.